This is Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related, and today we have just a quick news video. There's been a few recent interviews and articles that I thought were worth bringing up and wanted to share with you all. So let's not hesitate and dive right into it, beginning with a recent video by IGN. This interview was a part of their Summer of Gaming 2020 livestream event, and they talked to Jack Buser from Stadia, Mark Alexis Cote from Ubisoft, and Jerome Jones from Robot Entertainment. The majority of this interview was treading on things that you would already know if you follow Stadia, such as the release of the Stadia base and the free trial for Stadia Pro. That said, there were some very interesting comments made throughout, and I'm gonna talk about a few of them right now. The first comment comes from Jerome Jones from Robot Entertainment. If you weren't aware, they're the ones behind Orcs Must Die 3, and this is a first on Stadia title that seems to be taking advantage of the hardware. Originally, when the first trailer for this game was shown to us a few Stadia Connects ago, we all came to the conclusion that those giant war scenarios had to be a Stadia exclusive feature. Well, during this interview, he pretty much confirms that that's exactly how it works, that these giant war scenarios are possible due to the power of building a game in the cloud. He goes on to state that the war scenarios for Orcs Must Die 3 are going to be much bigger than what fans are used to from the previous entries. Not only the amount of enemies on screen, but the entire size of the map as well. He talks about how in a regular game of Orcs Must Die, you'll typically see about 100 orcs a wave. But for Orcs Must Die 3, their war scenario numbers have gotten dramatically bigger. Those are his own words, not mine. He even states that we'll see more orcs on screen during one wave than we will an entire scenario from previous games. I personally cannot wait to see this in action. I've been waiting for this game since it got announced, as I'm actually quite a big fan of the series, but it's just gonna be so much fun to see. I can just imagine the crazy physics of all the orcs ragdolling into the air when they land on a launch pad. He also mentions a bit about how it is designing a game for Stadia and the benefits of not having to worry about who's running what hardware. And he has a very big point there. No matter whether you're playing on a mobile device, your computer, or even a Chromecast Ultra, everyone has the same access. But now let's put some focus on what I think is probably the biggest statement throughout this whole interview. And that comes from Mark Alexis Cote from Ubisoft. Word for word, he stated the following: allowing us to pretty much bring the entire portfolio and all the upcoming games to Stadia. This was part of a much larger answer regarding his thoughts on bringing Assassin's Creed Odyssey over to Stadia, and I have to say, it seems pretty damn important. As we know right now, Uplay Plus is making its way to Stadia, and I've always questioned just how many of those games are actually going to be supported on the platform. While it's true that we've gotten quite a few key titles from Ubisoft like The Crew 2, The Division 2, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, we're still missing quite a lot. This had me thinking that Uplay Plus being brought over to Stadia might be short-handed in quite a few ways, but this statement kinda changes that. Or does it? He could just be talking about what they've brought over, but for him to say the entire portfolio, it sounds like a lot more than just that. Secondly, I have to say, it's really reassuring to hear him talk about future titles on Stadia and how they plan on bringing them over, because it just makes it feel like they're gonna be in it for the long haul. I can't say I'm surprised, this is Ubisoft after all, and they have a huge amount of support and my respect for the way they support all platforms. They've always been the company to take risks and place bets on emerging technology. Now, the last thing I want to bring up about this interview is something that Jack Buser stated, and it was a statement revolving around the difficulties of changing the perception that Stadia currently has among gamers. And what he says is something that I think is absolutely true, and that's just getting people to try it. I think as of right now, the majority of people who are talking ill about Stadia is simply because they haven't actually used the service whatsoever. And I don't deny the fact that it's not for everyone, but I think a lot of people have this negative connotation that games are unplayable or just not good enough. But as many of us know here that actually play on Stadia, that's just not true. Many games perform much better than people would ever expect it to, and I think I've seen quite a few surprised faces when I tell them the game's running on Stadia. The truth is that the PR from Google really hasn't helped this whole scenario, but they are slowly improving, and I think the fact that they acknowledge what the issue is pretty important. After all, they know what the problem is, clearly, so that does mean that they must be looking for a solution. And finally, before we move on to the next bit of news, I just have to give some credit to Jack Buser. This is the second time I've seen him do this style of interview, and he comes off really well. He really seems to be a gamer himself who understands the ins and outs of the industry, and I hope they continue to use him on the PR front. And that pretty much summarizes everything about this IGN interview that I think was worth noting, but if you want to watch the full 17 minutes, I'll link it down in the description below. But now let's switch focus and talk about the other bit of news for the day, and that's coming from an article from GameIndustry.biz. And it comes in the form of an interview with EA's Chief Studios Officer, Laura Miele. Now, quite a lot gets talked about in terms of EA and their games as well as next gen here, but I just want to bring focus to one statement that was made. Specifically the one that pertains to Stadia. It says the following: "We want players to be able to play our games where they want to, which is why we're bringing more games to more platforms including Stadia, Steam, Switch, and Epic Game Store. We're also making a big push on crossplay because we know a fundamental motivation in playing games is about connecting with friends and family who may choose to play on a different console or platform. The ecosystem in which we are operating has changed for the better, and we want to be everywhere players are. As of right now, we know that at least 5 EA games are making their way over to Stadia, including FIFA, Madden, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. There are still 2 games yet to be announced, but based on a current rumor, it sounds like one of them is going to be Apex Legends. If you want to hear more about that rumor, be sure to check out the annotation above and click on the timestamp. So that leaves one more mystery title, and honestly, I'm not sure what it could be. After all, none were revealed during EA Play's live event, but something's telling me that we might hear about it at the upcoming Stadia Connect. And my personal bet is that it'll be Star Wars Squadrons, simply because of the crossplay support that's receiving and the amount of platforms it's going to be launching on. But that's ultimately a guess. Either way, I want to go back to the article and that statement we just heard. I think it's fair to say that there's quite a few people out there who are concerned whether or not Stadia is going to be open a year or 2 from now. And while I think there's more than enough evidence to show that Google's in this for the long haul, this is yet another key article that we can point to now. Ultimately, the truth is that whether or not you like games like FIFA, Madden, or the other annual sports games they put out, they're key titles to have for any platform. And the way they talk about Stadia here makes it sound like this is gonna continue to happen. But even better news is the fact that they're pushing crossplay so heavily. I think we've all encountered a time where we're trying to matchmake online for games on Stadia, and sometimes it takes just a little bit too long or you don't find anyone playing. This is honestly quite a big issue, and for some games kinda takes out all the fun. Thankfully, the industry seems to be moving toward a place where crossplay is starting to become a standard. And the games that already support crossplay on Stadia, like The Division 2, are just a blast to play because you can always find other people to play with. You don't have to be worried about what time of day it is because the other platforms can make up for the lack of user base that Stadia currently has. And if there's one positive thing I took from the EA Play live event they just had, it had to be their support for crossplay. They made sure that a ton of the new games coming out from them actually support it, and I have to give them props for that. But now it's time we move on to the last bit of news, and that's coming from the Stadia community blog itself. The Stadia team recently held an interview with Funktronic Labs on their newest title, Wavebreak. In case you didn't know, this game will be launching on Google Stadia June 23rd and will be priced at $29.99. More than anything, I just wanted to bring attention to this interview as they talk about their development process and why they're interested in developing for Stadia and the benefits of it as well. They also give a good indication of what type of game Wavebreak really is and what inspired it. In the interview, they stated the following when asked about what makes Wavebreak unique within the arcade sports genre. Wavebreak combines elements of some of our favorite games, a little splash of Tony Hawk Pro Skater, Rocket League, Wave Race 64, with FPS mechanics to create a game that's really unique. It'll take skill to master the game and get really high scores, taking into account the dynamic weather simulation, the extra degree of rotation, as well as attacking other players while doing combos. So if that seems like your type of game, be sure to keep an eye out for it later this week. It is important to say that this is another first on Stadia title as well. And for those wondering, yes, I'll be reviewing the game, so be sure to stay tuned to the channel for that too. If you want to know more about the game or the developers behind it, be sure to check out the full interview. It'll also be linked down in the description below. That's all the news I have for you today. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful at all, be sure to hit that like button as it really does help the channel out. And if you're wanting more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. Today's end of video message is going to be a question about the 2 mystery EA games. What do you think they are? Do you think one of them will be Apex Legends? You've already heard my guesses and now I want to hear yours. I'm looking forward to your replies down below. As always, thank you for watching this video. This has been Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related. The Gen S community is over 4,300 strong and growing by the day, and until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds.